Good day, and welcome to today's NetSuite webinar, What Can Cloud ERP Do for Your Distribution Company? My name is Ranga Bodla. I'm the Wholesale Distribution Industry Lead over here at NetSuite, and I'm pleased to be joined by John Beck, who's the Wholesale Distribution Vertical Market Expert at NetSuite. And over the course of the next hour, I hope to talk to you a little bit about what Cloud ERP and what NetSuite specifically can do for you as a distributor. So the first place I really want to start is talking about why are we all really here. And what we're really here to talk to you about is transformative results. So one of the things that I really think is important to kind of point out right up front is we're not just talking about making minor improvements to your business. We're really talking about how can we impact your business and really transform what you're doing. How can we increase your actionable insights? How can we make significant changes and improvements in your gross margin? How can we reduce your IT support costs? How can we reduce your inventory as an example? And of course, we'll go through other examples as we go through this, but these are just some of the examples of some of the transformative results that our customers have realized, and that we'll show you how those customers have realized that as we go through this presentation. Let's just walk through a quick agenda for today. So we'll start off, we'll talk about today's constant state of change. Most of you are already aware of this. We'll just kind of highlight it so that we're all on the same page. The fragmented system landscape, unfortunately, that many of us have to deal with in order to meet that challenge of that constant state of change. We'll talk about why NetSuite. And we'll really focus the majority of our time on a demo. We'll focus on the product and show you how we actually do that with our product. Let's start a little and talk about today's constant state of change. And most of these elements are things that all of you are already aware of today. But I just want to walk through them quickly. And that is, first of all, business models are constantly evolving. As distributors, you know this first and foremost, that the changing world of distribution is something that is an ongoing challenge. Distributors are increasingly added value-added services, becoming closer to their manufacturers. They're going direct by adding e-commerce. The change in how these business models is happening very quickly and very rapidly. In this landscape, agility is a must. If you don't have the ability to adapt, it can mean the difference between competitive differentiation, quality service, timely product offering, or nimble decision making. And one of the biggest things is if you're trapped, if you're not able to change as the marketplace requires it, you're going to be left behind. The third is a global view is required. While it may have made sense just to look at your particular region or your particular area just a couple of years ago. Now everyone is required to think about and look at a global view and a global perspective where you have to look at international customers, international suppliers, warehouses, etc. The new technology impacts expectations. This is another big important thing as the marketplace is changing, as consumers are changing. They're all expectations of what they have and what they have in front of them is changing increasingly. People expect to be able to buy online. People expect to interact with companies and not necessarily interact in the ways that they had done before. And lastly, employee engagement, which is essential to all of this. As the workforce is changing, more millennials in the workforce and their expectations in what they're seeing, they are expecting a difference in what the technology that they use. What they use at home is what they expect at work, and that is something that is important. The other challenge, though, is when you talk about this adaptation and changing to today's world with those fragmented business systems, it becomes quite difficult when you talk about you've got one system for financials, another system for shipping, another for sales automation, for e-commerce, for marketing, for procurement, for HR. All these systems trying to talk to each other, the spaghetti mess that you have in there, again, becomes very difficult to try to adapt. As you need to make changes, if you have to go and make it across these 17 different systems, it becomes very difficult. It also becomes difficult to have visibility into what actually is happening in the organization and what's actually happening in the enterprise. And of course, that makes change very difficult. So when we talk about this in regards to NetSuite, what we really talk about is providing a comprehensive suite that covers the entire business. Now, we go through this. We're not going to necessarily go through every single element of this. We're going to hopefully give you some perspective and showcase some of the elements of this, all the way from marketing, all the way through manufacturing, inventory management, and planning, et cetera. But I think the important thing is it starts with the core, the management of customers, the management of your orders, the management of your books, but also having the analytics and understanding of how the business is performing, and commerce being an integral part of all of this, surrounded by the core functionality you need to run the entire business, and allowing all of your internal stakeholders to easily access information in a way that's tailored to their specific role. But it's not just about the employees within your four walls. It's also about extending access out to external systems, your customers, your partners, and your vendors that you want to provide that as well. Now, of course, you don't have to take our word for it. Forrester had a recent study, the 5 prevailing trends in ERP. And two of the elements that they brought up are collaboration and analytics being central to ERP. Of course, cloud was part of this. I mean, deployments are complementary to on-premise apps. Mobile, making sure that you can run this wherever you need to and however you need to. But analytics is a big piece of this, broadening the organization's use of business intelligence reporting, being able to have that as core to the product. But also collaboration and taking on technologies as a part of push for app usability so people can easily interact with the system. And embedding of the processes within the actual applications as well. Now, when you're talking about NetSuite, you're talking about the trusted leader in cloud ERP, and the numbers tell it all. Gartner named NetSuite as the fastest growing financial management system, and as you can see here, the only major vendor out there. And it's not just, a minor difference between us and everybody else, but you're dealing with the trusted leader in cloud ERP with over 20,000 companies and organizations that trust NetSuite to run their business day in and day out. So really, what's driving this growth? And why are distribution businesses in particular, choosing NetSuite for their business? I think there are really 5 tenets, and we'll hopefully show you this as we go through the presentation today. But number 1, being designed for a modern business. We were built from the ground up as a cloud solution. There's a lot of people that talk about cloud. They talk about, we can host it, we can make it available. NetSuite has been built from the beginning in the cloud. And we understand what that means, and we understand what it's required to be designed for a modern business. Number 2 is the need for flexibility. We talked about that changing landscape, and I think it's really important to bring this up, which is your systems need to be able to adapt to what your business needs are, not the other way around. And one of the things that is really important is a lot of people will tell you that customization is a bad word and that you shouldn't ever customize. And I'm here to tell you I think customization is a competitive advantage, and we'll talk about why that's important, but you need to have a system that allows you to customize and continue to take advantage of the innovations that are happening in the product. Business insights for all. It's about making sure that it's not just analytics, but real-time insights into how the business is performing. I can't tell you the number of examples of customers I talk to that talk about their partners that are all remote, they all get on the phone, they log into the system, and in real time, they understand how the business is performing and what's working and what's not. 4, being a commerce-ready system. Thinking about commerce throughout the entire system and how it's not just your front office, but your back office and all the pieces that need to be enabled from a commerce perspective. And last but not least, it just works. It needs to work for your business and doesn't need to have a lot of heavy lifting to make that work. I want to drill down into 2 other quick elements of this that I mentioned. So flexibility, like I mentioned, I think it's really important that flexibility exists in the product. So we mentioned it shouldn't require rocket science to configure or customize the product, but it also can't allow you to be version locked. I can't tell you how many customers I talked to where they switched off of other systems where, they customized it, and they felt like they couldn't customize again because they got stuck on it. But then I talked to customers who've been on NetSuite, for example, for 10 years, gone through 22 upgrade cycles, customized the product, and never skipped a beat. And one of the benefits of NetSuite is, of course, whether you're an end user, you're a business analyst, or you're a developer, you have the ability to customize the system to your particular business needs and business requirements, but then continue to take advantage of the upgrades and enhancements that happen every year. And every year, NetSuite has 2 major releases that we release. You get automatically upgraded. It's part of our subscription, part of how it works. And then it just works. Now, you may talk to a lot of vendors out there, but there are very few vendors out there that put their money where their mouth is. NetSuite puts our numbers out there for anybody to see. Status.netsuite.com. You can see how our systems are performing. You can see the latest uptime results. You can see if anything's happening with the system. We always make sure that information is available. And we have world-class mirrored data centers with that redundancy and disaster recovery, so it's secure and reliable. And we focus on that stuff that's not that exciting, but make sure that the business is running and is available. And of course, we're committed to the wholesale distribution industry. When you talk about our vertical focus, we have thousands of distribution companies, dedicated software experts across implementation, account management, support, product management, and our executive team. We have specific functionality, which of course we'll show you as we go through this. But probably the most important is that customers are voting with their pocketbooks as the 21st century choice for their business to be able to move from 10 employees to 100, from 100 employees to 1,000. They're voting with their pocketbooks to go with NetSuite as the choice to drive and move their business forward because they see it as a way for their success. So with that, I'm just going to do one last slide before we jump into the demo. And this is really the NetSuite wholesale distribution value chain, looking at it from marketing all the way to after-sales service and support. NetSuite provides a complete platform to drive the entire business. Now, John is going to show you some examples that go through and flow through how we do order to cash, how we do procure to pay, and give you some perspective of how the system works. We're not going to be able to go through everything, but hopefully you'll get some perspective of how NetSuite can run your entire business and the flow that we provide to make that work. And of course, the most important part is it's built on a set of world-class financials, a customizable platform, and it's commerce ready. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, John, and John's going to walk us through some examples of how you can leverage the system to do some of these pieces. So John, if you want to go ahead and share your desktop, it'd be great to see this for the next part.
Thank you, Ranga. Let me know when you can see my desktop.
All good. Looks great.
Super, super. So right now we are logged in one of the roles that Ranga referred to. I'm logged in as the senior executive. We'll talk about some of these different roles in the course of the next 45 minutes or so and walk through some of the various business processes in each one. But in the meantime, while we're over here in the senior executive, we'll take a look at the dashboard that the typical CFO, CIO, COO would see when he's logged into NetSuite. So I've configured this to what I think is important for me in operating my business. So I'm seeing various alerts here, and in these tiles here, you can see that these are color-coded with information. Each one of these is dynamic in nature. I also have down below this a navigation portlet of typical favorites, activities or processes that I might need to engage in very rapidly. So I can see those here, and I can click on any one of these as I need to. Down below that, I've got a series of KPIs that are down in here, and each one of these, for example, income, sales, profitability, I can look at the current period versus previous. I can see the changes going up or down. I can click on any one of these, and I can pull up a chart that's going to put that in a graphical format for me. And I can view that graph in various formats, and I can export that on the fly. So all of the information that you need for your business is at your fingertips. If I were to come back over to the navigation portlet and click on, say, sales by customer, I can bring up numerous reports. so I can see sales by customer summarized. If I wanted to, I could look at that by location or by division or potentially by month or year, and just go ahead and refresh that and see that spread out accordingly. If I had a question about any one of these customers here and the detail behind it, all of these reports are live. So I'm drilling down into detail behind the scenes, looking at the individual invoices for this customer. And if I click on a specific invoice, I'll be able to drill down into that actual invoice here, 309-1684. I can see this invoice is paid in full. I can see when it was billed, its due dates, the posting period, the items that were on that invoice, prices, and so on, gross profit down here in the lower left. And if I needed to, I could click on the customer if I had a question about the customer himself. That brings me directly over into the customer, and maybe I want to take a look at the customer's dashboard, which we'll look at in a little bit more detail just down the road here. So heading back over to our dashboard, which is where we started at. So we drilled down through the navigation portlet. We looked at a sales by customer report, drilled all the way down to an invoice and over to the customer. And so now we're back at the dashboard. We can see over to the left, we've got a number of reminders. You can think of reminders as your in tray, if you will. So these are things that are dynamically updating that you would need to address as part of your business. And so we'll see these as we go through the various roles of different types of approvals and actions that need to be taken. I also have a list of recent records, so I can see the last documents and transactions that I viewed or touched or processed. So very easy to navigate around, very easy to view and have visibility to information in the system. So you can see I'm just scrolling down and I've got various reports and views. I've got a financial ratios view down here. And if I were to click on any one of these, I could see the report graph associated with it, or I could click on the numerical value and drill down to the detail behind it. So pretty good stuff. Each one of these portlets here are customizable. So I can select any one of these and click Setup and change the type of information that I might want to see. So for KPIs, I've got income, sales, profit, and revenue, but I could easily add standard or custom KPIs just by clicking on a button and choosing the information that I want to see. So if I wanted to see new business, I could select new business, add that to my KPIs, or potentially custom KPIs. So one of the things Ranga talked about in terms of user customizability is the ability to create saved searches. I can add saved searches that I create here, for example, an AR aging or active purchase contracts, and I can add those to my list of KPIs and have them show up dynamically in my KPI portlet here. So I just added that new business there, and it looks like I've actually got some versus last period, which is always a good thing. Each of the views that you're seeing here, you can move around. So I can drag each one of these and put whichever one that I think makes the most sense up top. I can move them over to the side if I wanted to. So if I wanted my KPIs over here on this upper left, I could do that. If I wanted my navigation portlet up here up top, I could make that change as well. So easy to customize the look and feel and the type of information that is important in your business for you to see. So that's a quick overview of navigation on the dashboard and being able to flow through the system. I'm going to go through a quick lead to cash. And what I'm going to do that is I'm going to put on my sales rep hat. So I'm going to click on the sales rep role, and we'll see what his dashboard looks like. You can see I've got a little bit of a different look and feel. My KPIs are different than the senior executive, so I've got new leads, my sales, my quota, my forecast, and various sets of metrics that are important to me in my role. My reminders show opportunities to close, quotes to print in the upper left, items on back order and sales orders to print, and so on. To start off with this lead to cash process, I'm going to click on my new leads. So any leads that are pulled into the system from a variety of sources. It could be an online lead from your e-commerce portal. It could be leads that are loaded from a trade show or from any other third-party source. So I'm just going to click on one of these new leads, San Mateo Office Supplies. And you can see that information I've got in here has contact information, the company name already. It's in a status of lead new. And at this point, I can perform any number of actions in here. I can make a phone call to this lead if I wanted to. So you have some CRM, SFA type functionality that enables you to come in and say, I'm going to make an introductory call to this lead and say that I spoke to Jennifer and agreed to send a catalog. And go ahead and save that. In the same motion, if I wanted to, I could create an email out directly to send that catalog. And I can use any number of predefined templates. So as I pull that up, I can see the email address for Jennifer is loaded automatically because I started out from within the lead. And the message here I could type in, or I could choose a template. So I may have any number, as I said, of predefined templates, like the sales follow-up template, and say, here I'm sending pricing and catalog. And down here I have the template that I had previously created. And this is something that you can customize. Any user can key in and create any number of templates that they need. And you can see that I'm inserting her first name and so on and the company name in that template. And I'm just going to go ahead and say merge and send, and that'll shoot off an email over to her so that she has the information that she requested. Anywhere along the process, I can come into actions and show activity, and I can see everything that I've done so far. So I can see that I performed an intro call, that I sent the catalog mailer, which is where the lead started from. It was the catalog mailer from fall. And here I can see the email that I just sent off with the template that I used to send off that pricing and catalog information. So at your fingertips, you have the last touches that you have with this lead. So what I'm going to do is assume, for example, that some time has passed, and we want to go ahead and take an order. So she's called up, and she says, I'm ready to place an order. By clicking on Sales Order, you can see that directly from that lead form, I've popped into a sales order entry form, and all of these forms that you're going to see today are customizable by the user. So there are multiple forms that can be created, and each of these you can move around the look and feel in the fields and so on. So this is just an example that you're looking at. You can see that the name of the lead, which is now popping into a customer because this is going to be an order, it's going to be created with a status of pending approval. Potentially might need sales director approval, potentially might need credit approval since it's a new customer, depending upon your own process and workflow. But what I'm going to do is bypass some of that and just come down in here and key in some items for sale just to keep it simple. So I'm going to put in an item here, a phone, and I'm going to take an order for 10 of those, and I'm going to add that line. I'm going to put in another line, and again, order 10 of those, and add that, and then one last line. And again, just to keep it quick, go ahead and accept that, add that line, and I'm ready to go ahead and save this order. You can see that pricing has automatically been calculated. Any one of these prices can be edited on the fly. So if I needed to change a price, or there was some negotiation, or the price level needed to be adjusted because there was some volume discount, if there was a volume discount, it would be captured automatically, but you have the ability to customize price on the fly, of course. And there's plenty of other information here that you can view, but just to keep it simple, we'll go ahead and save this order off and move through the process. So what I'm going to do here is take off my sales order hat as that's saved. You can see that this order is at a pending approval status. So I'm going to come back up here, and because I'm in a demonstration environment, I'm going to take off my sales rep hat, and I'm going to put on a sales director hat, who, in this case, in this particular flow that we've got, is the person who would be coming in and approving this order. So you can see that I'm looking at a completely different view here with different dashboards, different information that's important to a sales director. And I've got a number of reminders here, as we talked about previously. One of them is sales orders to approve. So if I click on sales orders to approve, one right up top that we just entered that needs to be approved is this order 737 for San Mateo Office Supplies. So I'm just going to click on that order. And just for expediency, for this example, I'm going to go ahead and approve this order. And as I'm moving this order through the process, different roles in the organization are going to touch it. So the next step in the process is, let me scroll up, is pending fulfillment. And so what I'm going to take off my sales director hat and put on my warehousing hat for a second. And I'm not going to go through the process in this case of actually picking the product in the warehouse and so on. I'm going to just set it up and say that it's been shipped and fulfilled just to move the order through the process. But you can see I'm in this fulfill order step, and the one we just entered and we're moving through is order number 737. So I'm going to mark that fulfill. I can review that order if I need to. I can see I have visibility to my on-hand quantities, the quantities that I'm going to be shipping, the location that I'm shipping these out of. Of course, we support multi-location, multi-company, multi-currency. We can drill into those details later or on another call. So I'm going to save this item and say that it's been fulfilled. So as I fulfill that order, then it's handed over to the accounts receivable clerk or someone like that in your organization that would typically be responsible for billing. It could be somebody in the warehouse, but very often somebody on the credit or receivable side. So I'm going to pop into bill sales orders, and we can see that same order that we just discussed is ready for invoicing because it's been fulfilled, it's been shipped and processed. And I'm going to bring it up. And if I just scroll down here, I can see the customer San Mateo office supplies. I can see the 3 order lines that we've shipped, the pricing, tax has been calculated in this case. And I'll just save that invoice. That invoice would be presumably emailed behind the scenes potentially, or faxed, or mailed, of course, either way. And I would be done in that particular case. So you can see I've been using my reminders in each of these roles as I'm taking one hat off and putting another hat on, and I'm just working my inbox, if you will, my reminders here. And so what I'm going to do is pop back over to my sales rep and just kind of get some perspective on his history. So we can see his recent records. We can see he had a lead called the San Mateo office supplies down here in the lower, over here in the mid left. I'm just going to click on that. We can see if I click on that now that lead is a customer because we took an order and we processed it. So that lead is a customer. And if I drill down amongst the various pieces of information, some are financial, some are sales, some are profile information, I'll just click on sales and transactions. And I can see that if I pop down into transactions, I can see the original order that I took, 737. I can see the fulfillment, and I can see the invoice, billed, shipped, and I have an open invoice here. And I can click on that invoice as the sales rep, and I can view it. And so here I can see the invoice that ended up getting billed. So one of the other things you can do, if I pop back into AR Clerk, that I probably should have done a little while ago, is look at that same customer. Let's say I've got a question about that customer because it's sometime later. So I'll pull up that customer and pop down into that invoice. And let's assume for the sake of example that they've actually sent us a check. So I can directly click on the invoice and accept the payment directly from here. The amount of the invoice is automatically populated in. If I had additional invoices that the customer was paying, they would be listed out here, and I could simply override the payment amount and save that payment, and I would be done with that transaction, and that invoice would be paid. So that is a quick lead to cash flow. We started off with a senior executive. We looked at the dashboard. We went through sales and sales order approval and fulfillment and billing and payment of the invoice, and just to give you a quick flow there. So Bronk, I'll just pause if you have any questions.
That was great, Don. Yeah, I do. I had a few questions. So, let's in this flow that you just walked through, what if the customer needs the product immediately? Could we drop ship the item, or can we ship it from another location? I noticed you had a number of different options there. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Let's take a look at that. I'm going to go back into order entry. I'm going to enter an order from scratch. So we'll just put in our customer. Notice that just by keying in the customer description, it's pulling that customer up. So I can click on that and come down here to the bottom. And if you notice, I'm just going to key in an item here. When I key in that item, you're going to notice in this particular case that I'm getting a message that's popping up that's saying, hey, this product is not in stock. If for some reason we don't have availability, we can see 0 is available. We've got 46 back ordered and 75 on order. So if we wanted to, when we needed to promise our customer when it would be available, we've got an expected ship date we can click on, and we can pull up a view, and I'm just going to expand this here a little bit, and we can see that for this particular location, for this particular item, we can see that the earliest available date is December 17th. And so I can promise that I'll have it by that date, and I can see that I've got a PO on order for 75 units and demand already on our current orders of 46. So I have net availability moving into the future of 31 units that are free and clear. So I have the ability to promise that item. And if I just click OK, it'll automatically insert that expected ship date. So that's one way to do it. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to flip over into the sales rep role and take a slightly different tack. Let's pull up that same customer. Or rather, let's go into sales orders. Apologies. And key in the customer. And so let's key in that same item. Get the same message. We're out of stock on that item. One of the other things you can do, besides that expected ship date, I'm over here on the right-hand side, if you can see my cursor moving, is rather than promising them that out in the future, if they needed the product immediately, it was a very important item or a very important component that needed to be shipped immediately, I could simply come in here and select drop shipment. Some items are non-stock items, and they're going to be drop shipped automatically, but I could drop ship this item directly on the fly. And by saving that then, in this scenario, what the system will do behind the scenes is automatically create a PO for me. So, of course, in our world, we've got this set up for pending approval, and just to expedite this along, I'm going to go ahead and approve it. And once I do that, we can see that the system will create a PO. In this case, it's created PO 1382. And typically somebody on the warehousing side would be out here, and they would be responsible for receiving and managing those purchase orders. It may be the case that they want to see these items before they're sent out. So I'll just pull up that particular vendor. We could see that PO 1382 has been created in the system, and I can just mark it shipped. And if I mark that PO shipped, the system will tee that order up, that sales order up, as delivered by the vendor already. So in this case now, because I've marked that order as shipped, if I were the AR clerk and I were walking in after lunch, presumably some number of days later, after it's been marked shipped, I could come in here to mark sales orders to build, and that order now is ready for billing because the vendor has drop shipped the order directly for us, and we got it out there per their request using a drop ship. So I'm going to save that invoice, and that's just a real quick scenario around available to promise and drop shipping.
Makes sense. John, I have to ask this question. So everything you're doing, I mean, it's moving very quickly. You're going through and you're showing these different roles. Are you showing us the system live, or is this a cached version of the system?
Absolutely. This is all a live system. That's all we work with.
The other question I have, John, which is, as distributors, everything comes back to the customer, and you need to find out about as much as you can about a customer. Can you talk to us a little bit about what do we provide in the way of customer information?
So a lot of times, sure. A lot of times, if you notice, I'm back on the sales rep screen, or sales rep role, rather. I'm going to come up to what we call our global search, and I'm going to put in a customer search. I'm going to pull up Smith Supplies in this case. And by putting in a prefix, it's just going to narrow it down to a customer search. If I just keyed in Smith Supplies, it would have found orders and leads and anything it could match associated with that search argument. So I'm going to select dash, if you will, over here to the right. And if you need a quick access snapshot of a customer and what's available without going through the customer master, you can pull up your customer dashboard, which you can see here. So you have all the information, all the relevant quick information that you might need, like the customer name, sales rep, web address, email, phone number, address, balance, days overdue, if anything, lead source, and various other pieces of information. This information can be edited right here on the fly if need be. And if you notice up in the upper top, you've got a portlet here with all your KPIs. So we saw KPIs a little while ago. Here, these KPIs are specific to this individual customer. So we can see sales information, forecast information, current versus previous, with your graphical up and down. And again, any one of these can be graphed. So I can pull up a sales graph for this particular customer if I needed to. One of the other things I think is great is that we've got a case management system that's built into it. So your customer relationship management. What are the open issues or open cases we might have with this customer? Certainly relevant type of information if we're going to make a collections call to a customer, for example, or if we're going to call on a customer for sale, being able to view the issues that they might have or that are open that we need to respond to is certainly very relevant. So very easy to pull up all sorts of customer information and reports. Here you can see your customer dashboard links, and I can see sales for this customer, sales orders by customer detail, and so on. From here, I also have a link to create opportunities and quotes and create new sales orders as well. So I think the customer dashboard is a really great launching point for all your activities with an individual customer.
That's great, John. Thank you. One last question. I know that you want to go into the procure-to-pay flow, which is e-commerce is becoming such an important part of what distributors need to be thinking about, what they need to be looking at. How do we ease the process of managing and maintaining item information, pricing, and all those variables with respect to e-commerce? Can we use our own? Can they use a third party? Can they do either one?
Absolutely. So we have e-commerce, several different levels integrated into the system. I'm just going to pull up this item here, really, not to go into an e-commerce demonstration necessarily, but to pull up the item master. You can see this is the inventory detail for the 5500 Panasonic display that we were out of stock on earlier. You can see as I just briefly scroll through this information, I've got the item description, UPC code, display name, the units of measure for stocking and purchasing and sales. And if I scroll down a little bit more, you can see additional information around costing methods and prices and whether or not it's a drop ship item and how we're buying that item. So what is the replenishment method? We'll see and visit some of these in a little bit more detail. But if I scroll across up here up top, you can see I've got my item details, pricing information, accounting, and I've got my store subtab right here. And if I click on that store subtab, I can see all of my e-commerce information for this item right here in the item master itself. So there's no going out to a separate third-party solution to manage this. I can see this item is, in fact, displayed in the web store. What is the unique description that we might want to display in the web store for this particular item? All of that can be managed right here. What is the item display image and thumbnail? What specials are taking place right now? And then other information like stock and pricing behavior. So what happens when it's out of stock? Do we show the price or do we not show the price? How is the price calculated online versus in the system? So you've got some flexibility there. And then other information like how it relates and how we tie in search engines and feeds, product feeds from Google and Nextag and shopping.com. So really the main point here is that all of it is integrated into the core system and at your fingertips. Hope that answers the question.
Yep, that's great. Thanks, John. I think you wanted to go ahead and show kind of the procure-to-pay flow, so I'll go ahead and let you jump into that and ask some other follow-up questions for that.
Absolutely. So I'm going to pop into Purchasing and Inventory Manager. And just like with the other roles that we've been in, I have my reminders that I'm working to. And if you notice in my reminders, which again I've alluded to as my inbox or in tray, things that I need to tackle and take care of, I've got a number of items to order. So if I pop down in here, you'll notice as I scroll through, I can buy by location, or I can buy globally and distribute using DRP to different locations, but that's a bit beyond the scope of the call. In this case, I can toggle between various locations, and I can see the scheduled buys that are due for each of these locations. I can see the replenishment method for each of these. So some of these are time-phased. We'll talk about that in a bit of more detail in just a few moments. Some of them are based on reorder point here. So there's different types of replenishment methods we might use when we're creating these. If I were to drill down to say, you know what, this is the start and end date or the items that are due to buy over the next month. You know, it's the holiday season coming up, and I want to buy just up through the end of the week, for example. I could come in here and narrow that down so I could see now these are the items that I really need to place an order for this week. And if I wanted to, I could narrow them down to a specific vendor if I wanted to. I'm going to go ahead and kick off this order and just submit it. And this will create multiple orders from multiple vendors. Like I said, we could have selected one if we wanted to. So there's other information like availability and so on, and you can see that I created 3 orders in one step, and if I wanted to, I can click on one of these orders, and we'll just follow one of these through. So here, this is an order for best fixture. We're bringing it into location 2, San Mateo in this case. There may or may not be some approval that's required. Here we can see the line item detail. We're ordering 24 units at a cost of $50. If we needed to override any one of these points, we could edit this order and edit the cost. They're just pulled directly out of configuration in the system. I'm going to go ahead and just send it out and assume that it's some few days later, 14 days, 5 days, however long the lead time is for this particular vendor, and assume that we're receiving this in the warehouse. So I can save this item. And just for expedience, normally it would be somebody in the warehouse that would typically receive this, but I'm just to move it along here. So now that it's been received, if I wanted to, I could come in as the AP clerk. And again, this is best fixture. And I've got purchase orders to bill in my inbox here. And I could pull up best fixture. And I can see that I've got a number of POs. Here's the one of the ones that we've created, 1383. And I could bill all of those at one time if I wanted to, or I could process this individual PO and say I just got the invoice for PO 1383 and I have the invoice in my hand, so I'm gonna go ahead and bill it. And it's at that time when I have the ability to come in here and override, potentially do some APPO matching. So if, for example, they billed me $51 instead of $50, I can capture a pricing variance at that time. So very simple, easy flow. I start from the PO, I convert it into an invoice. Again, this could be for one PO or multiple POs. And if there was a price variance for this item, as I've just flagged here, for this particular item, I can set tolerances to say, what is the min tolerance that I might want to have this reviewed and approved? And if it's outside that tolerance, then maybe I want to send this invoice over to a buyer and have it show in his reminders box so that he can say whether or not it's approved, what's the correct price, and maybe update the bill with the correct price, or in fact approve it for payment on his side. That may also require controller approval if it's beyond a certain amount. So we can follow different workflow processes as well. So here I've billed that PO, and if I wanted to from here as the AP clerk, I could go ahead and make payment directly from here as well. So I can say to be printed, so I can pay it, but print the checks later if I want to by flagging to be printed, and just go ahead and this item, this one bill is the one that we're paying, and we can see it's best fixture, and we'll go ahead and save this bill payment. And so now that bill is paid. Of course, the next step, if there was a challenge with this invoice, is to void the payment, but that's probably a topic for another day. So that's a real quick procure to pay scenario, and open it up for any questions you might have. Oops. Ranga?
Sorry, John. Can you hear me now?
Yep, I can. Super.
Perfect. All right. Sorry. So what I was just saying was different distributors have different business models. When I look at the makeup of folks that are on this call, right? There's an MRO distributor, for example, and they might need to buy and stock product very differently than, say, an importer who's supplying a big box retailer. How do we support those different business models and really support all those different types of distributors?
Sure. There are different business models, no doubt about it, and there are certainly all different kinds of items. And the way that we plan for certain items may vary across organizations and even within an organization. So, if I pop into demand plans and take a look at some of these items, so I'll just take a look at some of the demand plans that are out there. What I'm doing using a demand plan is I'm using information that's in the system, either existing invoices and or sales orders that are out there, and creating forecasted demand in the system using the information that's out there. We can use a number of different methods, so linear regression would be one, moving average, seasonal average, and or potentially sales forecast themselves. So when you look at different types of, if I just pop into a supply plan here, for example, if you look at different types of replenishment methods, you might say time-phased, for example, would be, in the case of your question around being a big box retailer, if I was a distributor who was serving big box retailers and I had planned purchases that I was receiving potentially electronically via EDI or what have you from those retailers, so in other words, I had solid forecast information directly from them, I may take that sales forecast information and tie it directly into a planned buy. That would be an example of a time phase type replenishment. As opposed to a reorder point, which we were looking at earlier with our item 5500, for more of your MRO type items, various other types of business models, food service, Jansan, paperware, we're not necessarily getting long-term forecasts from our customers. We're really managing day-to-day, week-to-week. Maybe we're routing orders on our trucks for delivery. We might use reorder point, and reorder point is actually using that historical information, calculating a reorder point, calculating a lead time. You can see we've got auto calculation for reorder point, lead time, safety stock, preferred stock levels, and so on. So those can be managed automatically by the system, or they can be overridden by us. And each of those, no matter whether they're handled manually or automatically calculated, are tracked down here by location in the item master, so you can readily see those. So I can see for the Boston location, for this particular item, I have 22 on hand at an average cost of $45 with a reorder point of 15, preferred stock level of 30, lead time and safety stock, and so on. So those are the really kind of two different worlds that some of our customers live in. If you have planned demand that you can pull in that you want to turn directly into supply plans, you can do that with time phase replenishment methods. If you're managing day to day, then reorder point calculations might make more sense for you and your business.
Makes sense. Thanks, Don. What about companies with multiple locations? If you don't have a single location, for example, how do you make sure you're not buying more stock items than we already have in other locations, as an example?
So one of the things you can do is, if I were to pop back into sales orders, just very briefly, we've talked about what we're viewing on screen here as forms. So one of the things I can do is I can pull up different types of sales order forms. And one of those sales order forms that I have, potentially, I can use as a multi-ship, multi-location order. So just to briefly just show this, not to go through another order necessarily, but you can see by pulling up that form, I can bring down in the lower right, you can say I have location at the line level. So if I needed to, I can enter an order and have it shipped directly from another location, or I could take an order in the system and have it transferred from that location to my location where it's then cross-docked and shipped over to my customer. One of the other things that we might want to do on the buying side in terms of managing those, and I'll just flip over into purchasing. Actually, let's flip over into the admin role very briefly. Administrator. Is pull up transactions and inventory. You notice I'm using the menu structure now in this case, and look at replenishment locations. So what this allows us to do is to come into various locations. So let's say choose my Boston location and my San Mateo location, and evaluate needs from one location to another. so I can pull up all the items where I may have a suggested transfer that I may want to affect, if you will. So I've got my from available, the availability in Boston, the availability in San Mateo, what my back orders look like, what's on order on PO that's coming in, what my reorder point is, what my preferred stock level is, and what's the suggested transfer. So I can come in and in a more automated manner address transfers between locations. Now, certainly, some locations are going to be completely autonomous. In the ideal world, we're going to be able to manage buying for each location independently of one or the other, if that's your business model. But we do have the tools in place to provide you the ability to create these transfers so that we can rebalance overstocking in one location versus another. So I hope that answers the question.
Thanks, John. And the last kind of question I want to get in before we kind of really conclude, which is every distributor has unique requirements. We talked about at the beginning the need for customization. There may be process flows, unique customer information, item information. Can you talk about how we address kind of the need for uniqueness inside of NetSuite?
Sure. You mentioned in your initial presentation, you mentioned customization not being a bad thing. So just kind of to illustrate and answer your question, illustrate that point, I've popped into an inventory item here. It's 808NI 3-inch, which happens to be a 3-inch valve. And I'm going to go in to edit this particular inventory item. And let's say, very often with different types of businesses, different types of products, there may be technical specifications that need to be tracked, as an example, that might be customized. And if I pop down here into one of my subtabs, you can see that I've added a custom field called pipe size. And I've added a field called body CV flow factor. So these are two customized fields that I've added that are really very specific to valves per se. If I were to talk in different worlds, let's take, for example, if I were dealing with bearings, it might be an inner diameter, an outer diameter. Is it a steel bearing? Is it a ceramic bearing? And there can be, 10 or 15 different specifications that when my customers call to order, they might rattle off to me, and I might need to be able to pull up items in that manner. So you have the ability to create these custom fields, and it's really just as simple. If I scroll up here to the top, is to click Customize and Customize Form. And I'll just kind of show you a quick example, not to get into a lot of detail, but I'll just cruise over here in my Customize Entry Form to Fields and say, I want to create a new field. In addition to those other fields that we looked at, I'm going to create a field called maximum inlet pressure. Again, related to this being a valve, and this may be in PSI. And I'm going to say it's for an inventory item, although it could be used in any number of places, if you will. And then I can decide where do I want it displayed. I'm just going to let it fall out here wherever I want it to fall out. And then, do I want this to be free-form text? I'm going to leave it as free-form text just to keep it simple, but it could be a list. It could be numeric. It could be a hard-coded list. There's any number, a percentage, a phone number, rich text. There's any number of types of variables that you can control around that if you needed to. So I'm just going to say, save this custom field there. And here's a list of all the custom fields that I've created on that item in the past. And now if I just go back into that item, 808 NI. And scroll down. I don't have it showing up here, but ordinarily it would show up right here when I customize the field. But the main point I wanted to show you is the ability that you can add these. And if you wanted to at the same time, just to speed things along, I know we're running out of time, let me pop into a sales order here really quickly. So if your customers do call you and we had to pull up a search using a very specific type of item, I could come in here and I could type in the custom field that I created and say, I want to search by custom pipe size, and I want to pull up all 3-inch custom pipe sizes and be able to pull up all my items that way. And so you can see this 808 NI 3-inch pipe is pulled up. I've got 300 on hand. I can go ahead and take an order directly from here and process that order directly. So main point is I can create these custom fields and I can use them in the system. I can use them in order entry. I can use them in my buying and reporting. And this is all something that can be done without any technical expertise. It's really super user type expertise that would be involved at this particular point, and really easy to mold the solution to your business. So I hope that answers the question.
Thanks, John. Well, this has been great. I think it's been a good overview. There's obviously a lot more detail, a lot more things that you can show, and I know there's been some very specific questions that have come up that we'll just have to follow up directly with folks on and showcase that. But let me just go ahead and just do one last slide to kind of wrap it up, John. I'll just get the presentation ball back and walk through that here quickly. So the last thing I just want to end on, which is where we started today, which is what we're really talking about here is transformative results. And I started with some of the improvements and benefits that our customers have realized using our system, and I want to end with that as well, which is improved results from different distribution businesses, cross-business visibility, cross-financial management, cross-customer management, inventory management, and IT management. All of those pieces being key to what people have been able to realize leveraging the system. So, John, thank you again for giving us really a quick overview of the system. Obviously, there's a lot more detail that we could go through in a one-on-one demo for your organization as it makes sense. There's obviously some questions in here that we weren't able to answer, so we'll make sure we follow up with you directly, and we'll look forward to talking to you soon. Thank you very much, and thanks for attending.